Hello and welcome back to Hyperplay, and it's with great joy we bring you more glorious gameplay on the Retroid Pocket 6, smuggled out by our man at Retroid, Chris Undercovers, who has defied the seemingly blanket ban on gameplay footage on the RP6. It is so hard to see any games running on the new RP6, even though we are only 2 days away from the first batch pre-orders being sent out. So fair play to Chris, and thank you very much to him. Now, came in for a little bit of shtick on our last gameplay montage from Chris's videos, which we very carefully edited together, for not doing enough talking over. A low-effort video, the moderators on the Retroid Reddit thread declared. How very dare they. Nonetheless, we are back in black and on the attack, and we will cut to Chris, and you will want to hear how noisy the buttons are, what the game sounds like, and so on. But we will add our 2 pennyworth this time for sure, don't you worry. Now, it's kind of remarkable that Chris Undercovers is the Retroid PR man. He is not a gameplay tester. He is not front of house for showcasing their device. And Retroid are very curious. In the run-up to new releases, they hardly release any footage at all, not like Joran Bernick and what have you. But thanks to Chris smuggling out this footage, we are going to be able to see Zelda Breath of the Wild playing via cemu, the Wii U emulator, on the Retroid Pocket 6. Now, he is very carefully going through some mods and settings because his first stab at Breath of the Wild on the Wii U did not showcase the game or the Retroid Pocket 6 in the best possible light at all. But Chris has had a word with himself, and he has taken up the mantle of getting Zelda Breath of the Wild Wii U version running on the Retroid Pocket 6, and he does a much better job of it this time. Fair play to him. He is carrying the can for the gameplay showcase community, so thank you, Chris. And he is able to get mid to high 20s, you will see, FPS on Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, if you are going to play Breath of the Wild, we would strongly on your Retroid Pocket 6, we would strongly recommend availing yourself of the Switch version. In general, the Switch emulators, particularly Odin and Citron, are much further advanced than cemu, even though cemu, the Wii U emulator, has had a more recent release itself. But you can expect, with a bit of tinkering, Zelda on the Switch to get up to 40 frames per second. How do we know this? Well, because of course the Retroid Pocket 6 houses the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which we have seen before in devices like the recently released Iron Thor, but also the Odin 2 and the Odin 2 Portal. So whilst Chris is bravely running around the map here, fleeing from enemies left, right and centre, and getting mid-20s on Zelda Breath of the Wild Wii U. Very soon we're going to cut to footage from friend of the channel, Retro Handhelds 24. Now, Retro Handhelds 24 is a master at getting the most out of his devices. And he's probably not picking up an RP6 necessarily, because he's got his hands full with other devices at the moment, particularly the Odin 3. But I know a lot of you are going to be going for the RP6. So what we can show you is what Retro Handhelds 24 did with Breath of the Wild on Switch on the Odin 2 Portal, which has the same chipset. So let's have a look at what Retro Handhelds 24 could achieve for the Switch version of Breath of the Wild. We'll leave Chris under covers, bravely beating a retreat from the Bokoblins, and here's our man at Retro Handhelds 24 with the Odin 2 Portal. Now, we'll show you a graphic very soon from Retro Game Core's recent testing to show that the Retroid Pocket 6 will in fact have slightly better performance and better stability than the Odin 2 Portal. So you can expect this to be an absolute baseline for your Retroid Pocket 6 in terms of performance. Now, what our man Retro Handhelds 24 has done here is got the game running at 400% limit speed. So it will run slightly faster than you would natively imagine. But there is a mod that you can go and change. But you can see it's running absolutely superbly there. Breath of the Wild on Switch on the Odin 2 Portal, so you can expect the same on your Retroid Pocket 6. Back to Chris and Fast Racing Neo on the Retroid Pocket 6 Wii U again, cemu emulator, and yeah, running absolutely superbly, up at 60 frames per second. And despite this being a super pacey racer, it was one of the earlier games on the Wii U, but a great showcase for the system and for the RP6. Not a problem here. Fast Racing Neo looks absolutely great, and you can expect the Switch sequel to also run very well on your Retroid Pocket 6 too if you are into your futuristic races. One thing to mention is that Chris is sporting the 8GB version of the Retroid Pocket 6, so it's great to see these titles can run with that level of RAM, and you don't necessarily need the 12 gigs of RAM SKU. Right, let's move along from this to some PS2 footage. Why Hyperplay Man? Why would you drop down the generations and showcase PlayStation 2 gameplay when we all know that the Retroid Pocket 6 will be able to run PS2 games on its Snapdragon 8 Gen 2? Well, very well said, dear listener, very well said. But what I would say to you is that Champions of North, shown here, is widely acknowledged as the hardest PS2 game to emulate, and the fact it's running here so smoothly at 60 frames per second on this 120Hz 5.5-inch panel is a sure sign that you could be able to play all your PS2 games, every single one of them, upscaled to your heart's content. So let's move along. Does busting make you feel good? Certainly makes us feel good. My goodness. PS3 action with Ghostbusters on the RP6. Now don't be fooled by the initial frame rates up towards 30 frames per second, because when those Ghostbusting streams get streaming, you will find that the frame rates do drop. But a salutary reminder that Chris Undercovers is not a game tester. He is the PR man at Retroid, and yeah, Retroid do not do their best at showing off gameplay, but Chris is certainly doing his best, and this is more than enough to suggest to us that yes, with a tiny bit of tinkering, you'll be able to get PS3 games, some PS3 games running lickety-split on the Retroid Pocket 6, and really, it's only the relatively youthful state of the RPCSX emulator that's holding these frame rates back. I mean, PS3 emulation on Android via RPCSX is in its relatively early stages. That said, about 10 months ago, your favourite YouTuber and mine in this space, Russ of Retro Game Core, was able to get a good number of PSN, PS3 titles running on his Odin 2. So let's have a see what the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 that's in the Retroid Pocket 6 can do when in the hands of someone incredibly capable. And yes, lo and behold, young Russ has got all manner of PS3 games running on the old version of RPCSX. This is before the reband. This is RPCS3, an earlier version of the PS3 emulator on Android. And yeah, climax, I'd say so. Wow, absolutely stunning stuff. And bear in mind that your games will look even better on the RP5's OLED panel, because what's shown here is the Odin 2 standard. So not an OLED screen at all, but these games still look absolutely fantastic, running at native resolution on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, the same chipset that is housed snugly inside the Retroid Pocket 6. And big up Russ, because he has just released a superb overview of the Retroid Pocket 6's hardware, so I'll link that in the description along with this video of PS3 gaming on the Odin 2. But Russ has shown that the performance and the stability of the Retroid Pocket 6 is actually better than the Odin 2 shown here, so you can fully expect all those games there to run superbly on your Retroid Pocket 6. And talking of Retroid, Retroid Pocket 5, Retroid Pocket G2, and the new Retroid Pocket 6. Back to our man Chris Undercovers. There's the cover. So he is staying resolutely undercovers. And Chris very kindly also tested out Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. Yeah, one of the harder games to run on the GameCube when emulating it on any of these Android devices. So let's see what Chris could get up to on the Retroid Pocket 6 with Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, and initial signs are very good, but Chris went a bit hard and fast early doors. He's got this running at 4x resolution. You really don't need it to be that high. And you'll see that the opening cinematics are fine. Never judge a game's emulation by its opening cinematics. The proof is always in the gameplay pudding. When he gets into the gameplay, you're going to see a bit of stuttering, a bit like me, stuttering, and then Chris will drop the resolution down to a much more sensible 3 times a resolution. So let's just tune in here. You can listen to those stutters at 4 times resolution, and then you'll hear Chris drop it down to 3 times. It'll be much, much better and smoother.
analog sticks are tighter on the RP6.
Good news, all for a bit more tightness for our sticks. And yeah, so as Chris bashes through these towers at 4x resolution, we're now going to see him drop down to the much more sensible 3x resolution, and you'll see that the gameplay is much more smooth thereafter. So yeah, GameCube games run at 3x resolution. You say almost all of them be able to do that if Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader can.
Great shot.
3x for sure is the way to go with this game, and the RP6 can most certainly handle it.
Great to know, Chris, and the RP6 can also handle Fortnite. Of course, all your Android games will be absolutely glorious. We'll run a lickety-split on the Retroid Pocket 6. Now, Chris has never played Fortnite, and spoiler alert, neither have we. So you're on your own here. This will be of immense interest to many of you, but zero interest to others. So just going to let a little bit of Fortnite play out here as Chris gets up to his usual heroics. And I hope you've enjoyed this showcase of all manner of games, ranging from a Wii U, comparing to how it'll look on Switch for Breath of the Wild, going across PlayStation 3 as well, emulation, which should be very nice indeed in some capable hands with some good tweaking on the Retroid Pocket 6. All your PS2 and GameCube games are very nice, and Android. So, phenomenal bang to buck, the Retroid Pocket 6. If you're interested in picking one up, we'll leave a link in the description. If you like these kinds of gameplay, montages, and extra info about the new consoles, then please do drop us a like. And please do consider subscribing so we can keep you up to date on the latest emulation handhelds coming out of China. One last thing to say is, for those of you who've been complaining that we've been coming in your ears to the back and right of you, we are trying out a new mic, which hopefully gives you a nice upgrade in audio quality to match the incredible visuals on show here on the Retroid Pocket 6. Do let us know if you appreciate the change. If you don't care, don't. But we'll put a link in the description to where we got our mic. It's absolutely superb. It was only about 30 quid on AliExpress, so I know a couple of content creators very kindly stop by sometimes to check out our vids. Or maybe you're in the market for a new microphone yourself, in which case we highly recommend the Fifine K688. Continuing the Star Wars theme, sounds like a character that should be in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Some mardy old droid. For those of you who've played that game, you'll know what I'm talking about. We'll leave Chris under covers to swing his axe at the trees in Fortnite. Well done, Chris, pelting it around, running at full speed. Both Chris's avatar and the Retroid Pocket 6. Many thanks for watching. Take care, and happy handheld gaming. Bye-bye.
Here it is.